The galaxy had seen many strange worlds, but none like Earth. When the great ships of the Galactic Empire appeared above the blue planet, every satellite and radar screen on Earth went wild. At first, people thought it was another meteor shower, a cosmic event, but soon the truth became clear. It was a fleet, the Silver, massive. Moving with the grace of gods, the Galactic Empire had come. Inside the largest ship, the Eternal Crown, stood Admiral Chiron, a creature of scaled skin and golden armor, his eyes glowing like molten glass. He looked down at the small blue sphere below, and a slow smile crossed his reptilian face. "Primitive planet," he muttered. "They will bend easily." The officers around him nodded quickly, none daring to disagree. For centuries, the Empire had ruled thousands of worlds through fear and technology. Their arrival always brought surrender. They expected the same from Earth, but humans were not like other species. While the Empire's ships entered orbit, down on Earth something unexpected happened. There was no panic, no chaos, no running crowds. Instead, the world united, but silently, quickly. In a hidden base under the Rocky Mountains, world leaders and scientists gathered. The screens around them showed live images of the alien fleet. President Elena Brooks looked at her team and said calmly, "We knew this day would come." A soft laugh escaped her. Not from fear, but from excitement. "Let's make a good first impression," she said. Meanwhile, the Empire prepared its landing party. A grand negotiation chamber was built on the surface near Geneva, made of shining metal and alien glass. They wanted the humans to feel small, the Empire's ambassador. Lord Varesh was proud and arrogant. He believed this would be just another easy negotiation, a simple show of dominance. He rehearsed his lines, ready to offer peace in exchange for complete obedience. He didn't know that humans had already read the translation patterns of their language through hacked signals. They knew exactly what he would say. When the first meeting began, the aliens entered the hall first, walking tall and glowing under artificial lights. Then came the humans, no soldiers, no fear, just calm diplomats, scientists, and one woman holding a cup of coffee. The aliens whispered among themselves, surprised. Humans were smaller, weaker looking, but their eyes were sharp. Every step they took was measured, confident. Lord Varesh began to speak, his voice echoing, "We come in peace," he said, "and we offer the protection of the Galactic Empire to your small world." He paused, waiting for the humans to kneel. They didn't. Instead, President Brooks smiled slightly and said, "Protection? That's kind of you, but we seem to be doing fine." The translators hummed as the words reached alien ears. A few alien officers chuckled, thinking it was human arrogance. But the way the humans smiled made even the strongest warrior uneasy. It wasn't a nervous smile, it was confidence. Lord Varesh cleared his throat. "Your planet is unregistered, your technology is primitive. Your species is growing," interrupted a human scientist softly. "And learning fast," another added. The aliens exchanged looks. It was not the reaction they expected. Outside, the alien ships hovered above cities, their lights reflecting off skyscrapers and oceans, but from below, millions of humans looked up not in fear, but in awe and curiosity. Children pointed at the skies, adults took photos, and scientists gathered readings. The human spirit of discovery was alive even under alien shadows. And somewhere, deep inside the Eternal Crown, Admiral Chiron watched all this with confusion. "Why are they not afraid?" he asked. His second officer answered quietly, "Perhaps they do not understand who we are." Chiron shook his head. "No, they understand perfectly." He zoomed in on the human faces, calm, smiling, fearless. Something about it made his scales crawl. As the talks continued, the aliens tried to intimidate. They projected holograms of planets they had conquered, fleets they had destroyed, civilizations they had erased. But the humans only leaned back, watching, their faces expressionless. When one hologram showed a burning city, a human laughed softly. "Nice special effects," he said. The translator repeated the words, and the entire alien delegation went silent. No one had ever joked in front of the Empire before. It was as if the rules of fear didn't work on humans. Hours passed, and the negotiation reached no agreement. Lord Varesh began to grow angry. "You do not understand," he hissed. "We offer you survival, and we offer you coffee." President Brooks replied with a grin, sliding a cup across the table. The alien stared at the steaming drink, unsure what to do. Finally, one brave soldier took a sip, but immediately coughed. His eyes watering, humans laughed softly, not cruelly but kindly. The sound echoed through the chamber like a strange melody. It was the first time in history that the Galactic Empire heard human laughter, and somehow it unsettled them more than any weapon could. To them, laughter meant weakness, but here, it felt like power. When the meeting ended, the humans walked out first, heads high, still smiling. Admiral Karin watched the footage in silence. "They're hiding something," he whispered. But deep down, he knew it was not technology or numbers. It was something far more dangerous: spirit. The kind that doesn't bow, doesn't fear, and doesn't stop laughing even when surrounded by power. As night fell on Earth, alien ships floated silently in the sky. Millions of humans looked up, smiling, some even raising glasses in mock salute. They didn't know what the next day would bring. But one thing was clear: humanity was not going to kneel. And for the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Empire felt a new emotion. Not anger, not pride, but doubt. The arrival had begun, and so had the laughter. The sun rose over Geneva, its golden light reflecting off alien steel and human glass. For the first time in galactic history, an empire had come to Earth not to conquer, but to negotiate. At least that was what they called it. The great hall built by the empire stood like a monument of arrogance, floating above the city on invisible gravity fields. Inside, alien diplomats prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory. Lord Varesh adjusted his shimmering robe, the symbol of the empire burning across his chest like a second sun. He smiled to himself, thinking about the glory he would earn by making Earth bow. After all, this planet was small, new to the stars, untrained in diplomacy or war. He couldn't understand why the humans still smiled, why their faces carried no fear, only quiet amusement. The meeting began at precisely 9 in the morning. The humans arrived in simple uniforms, clean, functional, without the decoration or pride the Empire expected. They carried no weapons, only tablets and notes. President Brooks entered last, holding her same cup of coffee. The aroma filled the hall, irritating the aliens but somehow grounding the humans. She took her seat across from Lord Varesh and nodded. "Shall we begin?" Varesh leaned forward, his eyes glowing like molten gold. "Indeed, President of Earth," he said proudly. "I represent the will of the Galactic Empire, the most advanced civilization in the spiral arm." He paused for effect, waiting for admiration. But Brooks only sipped her coffee. He continued, "We offer peace, protection, and entry into the Empire's great network. In exchange for simple obedience and tribute." The translator repeated his words in perfect English. The hall falling silent afterward, the human representatives exchanged looks. Then one of the scientists whispered to another, and both of them chuckled quietly. Varesh frowned. "Do you find something amusing?" President Brooks smiled softly. "Oh, just the word obedience. It's not really our style." A few aliens murmured in disbelief, their claws tapping nervously against the table. No one had ever spoken to an imperial ambassador like that. Brooks continued, her voice calm but firm. "You said you offer peace, but peace built on control is not peace. It's ownership." Varesh's expression darkened. "You misunderstand, President. It is the natural order. The strong protect the weak." "Then I guess we'll protect ourselves," she replied simply. For a moment there was silence. The translator clicked and hummed, and then the alien officers began to whisper again. The human words didn't sound like rebellion. They sounded like confidence. Dangerous confidence to shift the tension. The Empire's holographic display came to life. It showed fleets larger than continents, planets filled with obedient citizens, banners of the Empire stretching across the stars. Varesh gestured to the projection. "This is the power of order, the beauty of obedience," but humans saw something else: slavery, silence, and fear. Dr. Malik, one of the human scientists, looked at the hologram and said quietly, "Looks lonely." The words echoed strangely through the hall, translated into a dozen alien dialects. Lonely. Even the machines paused for a second. Varesh slammed his clawed hand on the table. "You mock us?" President Brooks shook her head. "No, we just see differently." Then she pressed a button on her tablet, and the walls behind her lit up with images, not of war, but of life. Humans building, laughing, exploring, surviving disasters, rebuilding cities, helping strangers. "This," she said, "is Earth. Our history is not perfect, but it's ours, and we don't bow to anyone." The aliens stared at the moving images, Humans walking on the moon, diving into oceans, standing together in battlefields, rebuilding after storms. It was not power that moved them, it was will, a kind of stubborn spark that even the Empire's most advanced species lacked. And then, when the last image faded, a quiet laugh came from the human side of the table. Dr. Malik grinned. "You came here to negotiate? But you look more nervous than we do." For a moment, no one moved, and then something strange happened. One of the alien guards chuckled, quickly covering his mouth. Laughter. In the middle of an Imperial negotiation, Lord Varesh turned sharply, furious. But it was too late. The energy in the room had changed. The humans weren't enemies or prey anymore. They were something else. The rest of the meeting blurred into chaos. The Empire tried to regain control, but their words carried less weight now. Every human response was calm, logical, and just slightly mocking. The aliens found themselves reacting, defending, explaining. For the first time, the mighty Empire was on the back foot. And every time a human smiled, Varesh's frustration grew. When the session finally ended, the alien delegation left first outside. The streets of Geneva were filled with humans looking up at the sky. Waving, laughing, unafraid, the alien soldiers watched them from their shuttles, whispering to each other, "These creatures, they don't fear us," one said quietly. "No," answered another. "They fear nothing." Back aboard the Eternal Crown, Admiral Karen stood by the window, staring at the planet below. He had watched the entire session through a live feed. "They don't act like the others," he said softly. "They smile when they should tremble. They laugh when they should kneel." His second officer nodded nervously. "Should we report this to the Emperor?" Karen didn't answer. He just kept watching Earth, a strange feeling crawling through his chest. "Maybe," he whispered. "We're not negotiating with them. Maybe they're negotiating with us." The stars outside glimmered quietly. On Earth, laughter echoed again through the night. The humans had turned negotiation into something new. A test, a message, a warning, and the galaxy was starting to realize it. The negotiation had begun, and the Empire would never forget it. The second day of talks began under heavy clouds. The alien ships still floated over the cities, casting long shadows across oceans and deserts. People on Earth continued their lives, but the whole planet seemed to hold its breath. The Empire had demanded a private meeting, away from the media and civilians. They wanted proof. Proof that humans were not just arrogant, but capable. Inside the Eternal Crown, Admiral Karen stood before the grand holomap of Earth. The planet looked small, fragile, almost harmless. He didn't understand how such a species had resisted fear. His claws tapped the floor slowly. "We will ask for a demonstration," he said. "Let's see if their laughter hides anything real," Lord Varesh agreed immediately, smiling with cold confidence to the Empire. This was a test, to humiliate the humans in front of their leaders. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. Back on Earth in the underground command center, President Brooks listened to the Empire's demand. They wanted a show of human technology, her advisors argued, her generals warned. But she simply nodded. "Let them see," she said softly. "Just enough to make them think." Her voice carried no anger, only calm certainty. That night, the message was sent to orbit. Humanity accepted the demonstration. The next morning, the skies above the Pacific Ocean turned into a silent stage. The Empire's ships arranged themselves in formation. Shining like mirrors, their observers floated above the clouds. Recording every movement, a single human ship approached from the east. Small, metallic, and unremarkable. It wasn't sleek like the Empire's vessels. It looked like something built in a garage. The aliens whispered among themselves, amused. "That is their warship?" one officer asked, barely hiding his laughter. Even Lord Varesh chuckled. "Pathetic," the human vessel, named Vanguard, sent a short signal, 3 words only. "Ready for demonstration." Admiral Karen crossed his arms. "Proceed," he commanded. Then, without warning, the ship released a thin beam of light toward a nearby asteroid. At first, it looked harmless, a faint blue line cutting across the sky. But then the asteroid split apart, perfectly clean as if sliced by a cosmic blade. The explosion lit up the clouds below, a silent storm of light and dust. Every alien eye widened. No one spoke. The readings made no sense. The energy signature didn't match plasma, fusion, or any known weapon. It was simple, stable, and controlled. A weapon that could destroy, but chose precision over chaos. Admiral Karen's claws trembled. "What was that?" he demanded. His scientist stammered. "Unknown technology, impossible efficiency, power draw minimal." The Admiral turned to Varesh, his voice low. "You said they were primitive." Varesh's golden skin paled. "They should be," he whispered. "They should be down below." The human crew of the Vanguard calmly reported. "Demonstration complete," President Brooks replied from Earth. "Acknowledged. Maintain orbit." Then she looked at the camera broadcasting the event live across the world. "Sometimes," she said, "you don't need to roar to be heard." The people watching in every corner of the planet cheered. They didn't know the true purpose of the testing. It wasn't to show power. It was to show control. Hours later, in the Imperial Command Chamber, the debate turned into panic. How did they develop this weapon? One general shouted, "Did someone supply them?" Another argued. Karen silenced them with a wave. His voice calm but cold. "No one supplied them. They built it." He replayed the footage again and again. Zooming in on the human ship, old design, no energy shielding, no advanced armor, and yet it carried a weapon that surpassed Imperial standards. "This is not about technology," he muttered. "It's about creativity." For centuries, the Empire had relied on perfection, rigid systems, unchanging methods. Humans, however, embraced chaos, experimentation, mistakes, and that chaos gave them strength. Karen began to understand the laughter now. It wasn't mockery. It was a message. They laughed because they knew something the Empire didn't. Later that evening, a communication link opened between Earth and the Eternal Crown. Lord Varesh appeared on screen, his voice tense. "We acknowledge your demonstration." President Brooks smiled politely. "Good, we wanted to make sure we speak the same language." Varesh blinked. Confused, "What language?" Brooks leaned forward. "The language of power." For a second, the air went silent. Then, to everyone's surprise, she laughed softly, not cruelly, not arrogantly, but warmly. The sound traveled through the speakers like music, and even Karen, far away, couldn't help but smile. He turned to his officers. "They don't use fear," he said quietly. "They use humor. And it's working." His second officer frowned. "Admiral, are you suggesting—" "I'm suggesting," Karen interrupted, "that we stop underestimating them." That night, as the Empire's fleet floated above a glowing Earth, Karen stood by the viewing window. He watched the lights of human cities sparkle beneath the clouds. Each light represented a mind, a dream, a will. For the first time in his long military life, he felt something unfamiliar, admiration. "They are not the weak," he whispered. "They are the unpredictable." Back on Earth, people celebrated quietly, not with parades or fireworks, but with relief. Humanity had shown its hand carefully, strategically, and the galaxy was beginning to tremble. The laughter that echoed across the stars that day was not just joy. It was a warning. The demonstration was over, but the game had only just begun. The halls of the Eternal Crown were silent. For the first time since the Empire's founding, silence felt like fear. The demonstration had ended, but its echoes still rattled through every ship in orbit. Admiral Karen sat alone in his chamber, watching the replay again and again. That small human ship, that impossible weapon. That quiet confidence, it haunted him. He had seen hundreds of species bend under the Empire's will, but humans had done the opposite. They smiled. Even when faced with destruction, they smiled. That smile was not madness. It was a kind of strength the Admiral couldn't understand. He turned to his aide. "Run a full psychological report on this species." The aide hesitated. "Sir, their data networks are heavily encrypted." Karen smiled thinly. "Then decrypt them." Hours later, deep in the Empire's intelligence wing, alien analysts worked tirelessly. They hacked into global archives, history files, news channels, digital libraries. The more they learned, the quieter the room became. Wars, disasters, nuclear fire, extinction events, and yet the humans survived them all. No matter how many times they fell, they rebuilt. No matter how much they lost, they laughed. It made no sense to the Empire. Pain should break creatures, not forge them stronger. The head analyst, a pale-skinned Zarth named Elin, trembled as she spoke. "Sir, they are not like us," she said. "They don't evolve through peace. They evolve through challenge." Karen frowned. "Explain." Elin turned the display toward him, showing centuries of human conflict. They fight each other, destroy their own cities, yet somehow come out stronger. She paused, her voice shaking. It's as if their chaos is a weapon. Karen leaned forward. Eyes narrow, chaos as a weapon. The words hung heavy in the air. Then he whispered. That's why they laughed. The others looked confused. He continued. They don't fear destruction because they've already lived through it. They have nothing left to be afraid of. Meanwhile, on Earth the humans were watching too. President Brooks stood before her Security Council. Hands behind her back, her eyes were tired but sharp. They're scared now, she said softly. But that's not our goal, Dr. Malik. Still sipping his tea, smiled. Then what is our goal? To make them understand, Brooks replied. That fear doesn't work on us anymore. Far above. Lord Varesh stormed into the Admiral's command chamber, his golden armor flashing in the dim light. You let them humiliate us, he shouted. Karen didn't turn around, his gaze fixed on the hologram of Earth. They didn't humiliate us, he said calmly. They educated us, Varesh slammed his fist against the console. They're nothing. A newborn race. They don't even have interstellar travel. Karen finally turned, his voice like a blade. Then why do you sound afraid? The words cut deep. Varesh froze, realizing the truth he didn't want to admit. He was afraid not of the human ships, not of their weapons, but of the way they looked at him. That calm, amused expression. It was the same look the Empire gave to primitive worlds before crushing them. Now the roles had changed, and it terrified him. Later that night, a secret communication was sent to Earth, not from the Emperor, not from the diplomats, but from Admiral Karen himself. He requested a private meeting with President Brooks without witnesses. The message read only, I wish to understand. The meeting took place aboard a neutral station above the Atlantic. No soldiers, no guards. Just two leaders, one reptilian, one human. Karen studied the woman before him. Her steady eyes, her calm tone, her lack of fear. You knew we would come, he said slowly. Yes, she replied. We've been preparing for years. Then why didn't you attack first? Because we wanted to see if you'd listen, she said simply. Karen frowned. And if we didn't? Brooks smiled. Then we'd teach you. For a long time. The Admiral said nothing. Finally, he whispered. Your kind is dangerous, Brooks leaned forward. Her expression unreadable. Only if you make us be. He stared at her, realizing the truth. The humans didn't crave power. They commanded it through will alone. Not by force, but by understanding, by adapting. By laughing when others would cry. They were chaos shaped into form. When the meeting ended, Karen returned to his ship changed. He stood before his officers, his voice quiet but firm. Erase the term primitive from all human reports, he ordered. Replace it with unpredictable. The room fell silent. The Empire had a new word to fear, back on Earth. President Brooks looked up at the stars that night. She knew the war was not over, it hadn't even begun. But something had shifted for the first time. Humanity stood not as prey or pawn, but as equal, and far across the galaxy the message began to spread. A whisper in dark halls, a rumor in distant worlds. The humans don't fight for survival, the rumor said. They fight for meaning, and meaning was something the Empire could never conquer. The truth had been revealed, and the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. Days turned into weeks, and the Galactic Empire remained above Earth. Their ships no longer fired their engines in threat, but floated silently like watchers. Across the stars, whispers spread faster than light. The humans had made the Empire pause, and that had never happened before on the Eternal Crown. Admiral Karen stood in the observation deck, his golden eyes fixed on the glowing blue planet below. Reports flooded in from other sectors. Minor rebellions, colonies questioning orders. Worlds asking, if humans can say no, why can't we? The Empire was cracking, not from battle, but from an idea. The idea that fear was not eternal. Karen felt something inside him shift. He had lived his entire life believing in hierarchy, in control, in domination. But after meeting humans, everything felt different. They didn't win by strength or technology or numbers. They won by being impossible to predict, by turning every threat into a joke, every defeat into a story, every loss into laughter. He replayed the moment in his mind. The human president offering coffee, the scientist chuckling during holograms of destruction, that calm smile after slicing an asteroid in half. Each memory burned brighter than any laser. He finally understood. The humans weren't laughing at the Empire. They were laughing despite it. Meanwhile, on Earth, The world had changed too. Borders softened, arguments quieted. For the first time in centuries, all of humanity looked up at the same sky with the same thought. We did it. The aliens didn't rule them, didn't break them instead. The humans had made the galaxy listen in a grand broadcast. The Galactic Council called for a final session between Earth and the Empire. The meeting would be recorded, sent to every known system. A moment of truth for both sides. The stage was set in orbit. Half human technology, half alien architecture. Two worlds merged in one space. When the session began, the hall buzzed with hundreds of alien species watching through holograms. They expected fear, they expected conflict, but what they saw instead made history. President Brooks stood before the crowd, dressed in simple white, no armor, no crown. Across from her stood Lord Varesh and Admiral Karen. Both silent, both watching, Brooks spoke first, her voice clear and calm. "When you came to our world, you saw us as small, as fragile," she said. "But we are something else." She paused, glancing at Karen. "We are the species that fell 1,000 times and stood up 1,001. Her words echoed through the chamber. Then she smiled and said softly, "And when the universe tried to scare us and we laughed," a ripple of murmurs spread through the alien crowd. Varesh frowned, his jaw tight. "You find war amusing?" he asked sharply. Brooks shook her head. "No, we find fear useless." Karen lowered his eyes, understanding completely. Then, without warning, something unexpected happened. One of the alien delegates, a tall, bird-like creature, let out a short, awkward laugh. Then another alien joined, and then another, until the entire hall filled with strange, echoing laughter from 100 different species. It was not mocking, it was freeing. The sound was raw, alive, full of something the galaxy had forgotten: hope. Karen looked around, speechless. He had seen armies break planets, but never had he seen laughter break fear. He turned toward the human president, a faint smile touching his lips. "You've changed everything," he whispered. Brooks smiled back. "No, Admiral. We just reminded you that you could change." The broadcast ended, but its impact spread across the stars. In the following months, colonies began to rise. Systems demanded freedom, and for the first time, the Galactic Empire had to listen. Not because of war, but because of humans. A small planet on the edge of the galaxy had done the impossible. They had taught the most powerful civilization that laughter could be stronger than fear. Admiral Karen returned to his homeworld carrying the lesson with him. He disbanded half his fleet and began rebuilding a new kind of order, one not ruled by terror. When historians later asked him what caused such a change, he answered only 5 words: "Humans taught us how to laugh." Back on Earth, life returned to normal. Children played, cities thrived, and the stars above seemed a little closer. President Brooks stood one last time before the viewing window of the orbital station. The galaxy shimmered like an ocean of light. She smiled softly, whispering to herself, "They came to negotiate, and they ended up laughing." Her words traveled across the communication waves, reaching deep space, bouncing off satellites, and somewhere far beyond, in the dark corners of forgotten worlds, alien listeners heard it and smiled too. That night, laughter echoed through the stars, quiet at first, then endless, not cruel, not loud, but honest. It was the sound of something new being born. Not an empire, not a rebellion, but a truth. The galaxy had finally learned that the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their weapons. It was their hearts, the hearts that refused to surrender, and the laughter that refused to die. The laugh had begun, and it would never end.